All right. Next up, Wavetable. You might even call this the main event. I don't know. Wavetable is pretty cool though. So let's throw a wavetable down here. So, what is Wavetable? I think I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about different kinds of synthesis, but Wavetable uses wavetable synthesis. Okay, this is a type of synthesis. And the idea here is that the oscillator section is made up of a whole bunch of oscillators, and the sound we're going to create is by scrubbing through them. Okay, check it out. Here's the sound. So you can see the sound I'm actually making is in yellow. Okay, but if I scrub through these waveforms, we're going to kind of turn into each one of them. Okay, so this is my wavetable. I have a sine wave, a triangle wave, a sawtooth wave, and a square wave. Right? But we can get more complicated ones. Let's do like that. And it starts to get interesting. What if we did something like this? And it starts to get really interesting. Okay, so we have oscillator 1, that is this string of this table of waves. We have oscillator 2, we can turn on and add similar things. Ooh, check that one out. Okay. We have a filter, frequency and resonance. We have a second filter that we can turn on here. Okay. We have modulation. Now we have modulation all over the place here. And modulation is like really kind of important in wavetable, especially because we want this to be moving as we play. So we'll look at that in just a second. But we can modulate based on an amplitude envelope like this. Here's another envelope that we can assign to do different things. A third envelope, an LFO, and an LFO2. So how do we assign those things to do stuff? Well, just like we've seen before, we have a little modulation matrix. Okay, so let's say I want my amplitude envelope to modulate my wavetable position. Okay, amplitude envelope is here. Whoops, is here, and oscillator 1 position is there. Now when I play this note, the amplitude envelope will be triggered, and that is going to move around my modulation source. So, oops. So you can kind of see it moving there. Let's go slower. Okay, so you can see that this line is now controlling my position in the wavetable. Okay, that's important. Now you're thinking we haven't heard anything brilliant yet. Let's look at some of these presets and then you'll see like how crazy this can get. Okay, so if we look at some of these presets, there's like a lot of them here. Like a lot. Because there's just so much cool stuff you can do with this. Okay, so here we go. So look at just how the waveform just like morphs over time. It's just so cool and so dynamic. We get all the elements of good sound design in one patch. You know, we get shape, motion, timbre, it's all there. How about wobble bass? Let's go down an octave. Yep, there it is. So this is where your wub wubs live, if you're into that. Yeah, that's the sound I like. Okay, cool. So let's use that. You know, I'm just going to take this, our other bass line, and just double it down here. Maybe we'll shift around octaves in a minute, but here's what that sounds like all together. Super cool. Play around with Wavetable. There's so much fun stuff here. One more thing about Wavetable before we move on. We looked at this modulation matrix, and you know, when Wavetable first came out, this was a little intimidating, all of the things that you could modulate with and by. But with, you know, the modulation matrix in Drift, this looks really small. So it's actually not that bad. But keep in mind that it is one of the most powerful things in Wavetable. But also, check out the MPE tab. So remember, MPE is like that higher resolution MIDI. This is a good example for you to be able to see what it's doing. There are some parameters that a lot of keyboards just don't have. But an MPE enabled keyboard does have. And the way Wavetable uses that is if you're working on a keyboard that has these extra capabilities, you can use them as modulation sources. So, for example, slide. This is an interesting one. So on my keyboard, this has MPE. And what I'm getting at is, I wonder if I can get this so you can see it. There we go. I'll use this pitch. Okay, so slide is going to be, this keyboard has it, so it's going to be this. Okay, and then the last one, press, I believe that's pressure or aftertouch, sometimes it's called. So basically, if I touch the note, and then I'm just very delicately moving my pressure of my finger up and down. You probably can't even see it, but I can control things that way. Now we also have note pitch bend. Pitch bend, a lot of keyboards have pitch bend. You have a little dial usually on the left side where you can adjust the pitch, but that's going to apply to all notes. Note pitch bend is for an individual note, which I can get a few different ways on my MPE keyboard here. And this keyboard, by the way, is a Rolly C board. So there's a bunch of extra parameters that having an MPE keyboard can get you that you can use as modulation sources to make a more dynamic sound. This patch is taking advantage of those, which is really cool. So you don't need to go out and buy an MPE keyboard, but if you have one, it can be pretty fun to use for some of these wavetable patches.